You know what? It's another day, and you know what that means in phone land. It's time for another Android review. How's it going, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and we're going to take a look at the new Sony Xperia Ion on AT&T. The Sony Xperia Ion is here. The embargo's lifted. It's Sunday, and I've had this device for a couple of weeks now. And all in all, it's a pretty impressive phone for $100. Like I said, Xperia Ion announced at CES way back when as Sony's first, well, a couple of things. Sony's first device as Sony Xperia. No Ericsson left anymore. It's just Sony Xperia Ion. So first there, and then also first device with LTE connectivity in the US under the Sony brand. So this is the Xperia Ion coming to AT&T on Sunday the 24th for $99.99. So with a 2-year agreement, $100 here. This is going to go head-to-head or toe-to-toe, depending on which theory you go with there, if you prefer head or toe. I'm getting sidetracked. That's okay, though. It's Friday. $100 goes head-to-head against the Nokia Lumia 900 and a couple of other hot devices on AT&T. So this thing's coming in at $100 less than the One X, $100 less than the Samsung Galaxy S3, and it's got some pretty decent specs as well. So the question is it worth it? Should you go with a $100 device as opposed to the $200 device? Is this a good unit to have? Is it fast enough? We're going to find out all that and more in the review. But before we get into that, some love to Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with phones like the Xperia Ion for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working. They'll get all your mobile media settings ready to go on this device. So when you walk out the door, you're good to go with your contacts, your text messages, all that stuff set up at Best Buy Mobile. So this is the Xperia Ion, and to give you a rundown of the specs, it has a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S3 CPU. So we've seen the S4 come out on a couple of different devices, the 1 series, the Galaxy S3 series in the United States, and a couple of others. So, you know, S3 is definitely an older processor. This is the processor that runs in the Galaxy Note and the Galaxy S2, Skyrocket on AT&T, a couple of different devices. But, you know, hey, $100, can't beat that. It's got a 4.5-inch HD display as well, 720p, and an 8-megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording over here, a front-facing camera, and here's another kicker. It's running Android 2.3 with Sony Ericsson's Timescape UI. So it's running Timescape, and you know, even though it's running Timescape in an older version of Android, it does have some little tricks that make it seem like it's running Ice Cream Sandwich, even though it's not. For example, you'll notice the folders, show you these, just for example, very similar in look and feel to Ice Cream Sandwich here. So you can see they've made it look very similar in a lot of ways. So for whatever reason it doesn't have ICS yet. It's supposed to get it at some point, or they say it's Ice Cream Sandwich upgradable, but beyond that it does not have it at this point. 5 home screens in this device, and out of the gate you do get some AT&T stuff like Code Scanner, Family Map, Navigator ready to go, and then you get Live TV, and then a couple of other Sony things installed. Power Saver, Office Suite, Livewire Manager, and you can see down here you got your 3 dots, which when you scroll it tells you which home screen you're on. And I can do a couple of different things. I can easily uninstall stuff by clicking right here. This is a nice little feature, so I can go into Live TV, uninstall from there, and go right back to the home screen. I can organize in alphabetical order if I so desire. And then it looks like I'm already in alphabetical order, so I can go ahead and get rid of that. Amazon Kindle pre-installed as well. You've got your 4 capacitive buttons down here at the bottom. You've got menu, home, back, and search. And there's a little light, which is hard to see in the camera, but the buttons light up just below them when you, for example, I'll show you when it's in the dark. It's hard to see, but those buttons do light up. Very hard to see on camera. I actually don't think we're going to be able to see it. On the right side, you've got a power button. You've got your volume rocker down here. You've got your camera shortcut button, which you know I love those shortcut buttons. An HDMI port and a micro USB charging port underneath a flap here. And you've got your 3.5mm headphone jack right here. Now up top, you got a couple of different things. Your micro SD card slot, and then this little orange thing, which is your micro SIM card slot. It's a little bit of it's a tray where you put your micro SIM card slot. So here's what the lock screen looks like. Let's take a look at the personalization on this device, and as you can see, it's really a fingerprint magnet too. It gets scuffed up, or I shouldn't say scuffed up, gets fingerprints relatively easily. But I want to show you some of the personalization settings on this device because they are a little bit better than previous Sony devices. So you can see the theme. This is one of my favorites. I can go in here and change the theme. So let's say I want a silk, sapphire, turquoise, emerald, and you can see, or emerald, not emerald. That's clearly a combination between hemorrhoid and emerald. So clearly it's Friday and it's time for me to go home. But emerald, for example, emerald. And wow. And then lock screen settings over here where I can change what comes out on the lock screen. So I can set it as private so people can't see my text messages. You know, if you don't want the text message popping up from somebody, let's say you're out with a friend and these friends hate you, or this other friend hates that person and the messages pop up. Missed calls, new messages, new emails, and calendar events. I can kind of customize my lock screen, which is really nice. So I've got messaging here as well. Send it to a number I know is one of my demo phone numbers. and then I'm going to go 416-4099, and I'm going to say, hey there. This is Sony Ericsson's keyboard, and you've got a couple of different options. And the Xperia keyboard is surprisingly a decent keyboard. You've got a swipe-like option pre-installed there. And then I can go to input method and see Android keyboard, and then Xperia Chinese keyboard, Japanese keyboard, and then the typical keyboard. So I've got a couple of different options there, but I can send it. And what I really like, as you can see, it shows Brooklyn, New York, which is a demo phone, the Lumia 900 demo I have. So when I pull out, you can see Brooklyn, New York, so I know where it's coming from, and I have the number right there, and it's quick and easy to access. That's a nice little feature there as well. Let's go into contacts and take a look, because I want to show you this as well. We'll open the address book. Don't need AT&T's address book. I just want to show you some of the Heron Baker stuff in here so you can take a look. Please wait, it's loading up. Come on. Taking its sweet time. Taking its time. Come on. I don't have time for this. Let's go. Let's go. Actually, we'll come back to that. Phone. And you can see what the icons look like and what the dial pad looks like. A very decent application here, and you've got shortcuts for call logs, contacts, and favorites as well. So again, $100 here, and you get, and here's what it looks like with my demo number, and then Bill Stevenson, which looks a lot like me. And I have the picture up here, as you can see, and then I have the mobile number, favorite, edit, and send message, and I have my call log and favorites and phone, and I can easily go back to my dial pad again with that emerald look and feel as a result of the theme that I just changed. So I can scroll back and forth, and let's look at some of the, speaking of themes and customization, let's look at some of the widgets that you get on this device. So obviously you have some Sony widgets, then you have some stock Android widgets like calendar. Clocks is a Sony Ericsson widget. Then you can come down here like Livewire Manager and Music Player. All of those Timescape Friends, Timescape widget, those are all Sony widgets. Tools is one of my favorites. I can come in here and see that when I click on it, I get 10 different options. So if I want an auto sync button, I can click right there. So you do get a couple of different options outside of the stock stuff. And then when you click on something, you're not just getting one generic thing. So I can see clocks, for example, and then I can choose a bunch of different clocks and choose my favorite one. So I've got a lot of different options there. Now this thing has a 4.5-inch HD display, and it's a beautiful display. That's one area, you know, for $100, it's got a killer display. The processor may be a little bit on the old side, but it's still for $100. You're getting a nice value proposition here with an 8-megapixel camera, and then the display as well, which is really nice. Let's look at the browser here again, because it's 4G LTE connectivity. You've got a 4.5-inch display like I just said, and so for things like web browsing, you know, looking at videos on YouTube, you're going to be pretty happy with this device. It's larger than the iPhone 4S if you're looking at that on AT&T. It's just under the size of the One X and the Galaxy S3. It's a little bit larger than the Lumia 900, so comparatively speaking, it's nice in terms of the screen real estate. So pinch to zoom, relatively responsive. I've really had no problems with this device. And portrait to landscape transitions are nice and fast. So, you know, no real lag there. And then I can come down here and see my windows, and I can open up a new window. And you can see some minor customizations here as a result of Timescape. But for the most part, this is kind of a stock Android look and feel here. You don't get any shortcut windows or any sort of pictures of where you left off like you do on Sense 4 or on TouchWiz. And then, of course, the pinch to zoom, while great, and while it does have flash capabilities, perhaps it lags behind just a little bit in speed in comparison to devices like the Nokia Lumia 900, which is also $100 on AT&T, and then some of the cheaper Windows phones as well. You can see what Google Search looks like here, and then I can I'll show you that. And then, of course, you have your setting buttons down here where you can change the wallpaper, and then I can go into Xperia wallpapers, for example, and see some of the different ones that come pre-installed. One of my favorites is in here. We're going to go to, actually, we'll just set it as this one and change it around so you can see some different wallpapers with this HD display. It really is a beautiful HD display. They've done a good job here, and the combination of HD display, decent widgets, they've really improved Timescape and made it a really useful user interface. It's finally up there, at least on par with LG's user interface and some of the other big players on the market like HTC and Samsung. Now I think, you know, HTC and Samsung are much more popular, but you look at this, it's definitely an improvement from some of the older Xperia days.